Just a bit of background about Larry Greiner. He was an academic. He worked at 3 universities as a professor of management and organization. He worked at Southern California in the United States, Oxford University. He worked at top MBA schools in France as well. So let's have a look. What did he say? Strategic management model has 5 stages of organizational development, and it's accompanied by growing pains and resistance. Later on, there's also 6 stages added. So in essence, what he's saying is that any company that start from a startup and grow and get bigger will go through different phases and stages of growing pains, and there will be some resistance from the market or from competitors. The clues to future success lie in the past. There's some food for thought. And how would you explain this to somebody else if you read this in a book? Interesting quote. Okay, what I've done in this video presentation, I've taken the movie Jobs from Open Road Films, played by Ashton Kutcher, which did a really good job, and I've taken little scenes out of the film, and I've applied it to the different phases of the Greiner model of growth, and I also indicated what different crises the company went through. So let's start. First one was phase 1 was through creativity. So if you watch the film, you'll see in the beginning there was a lot of time and effort put into new concepts. Now that was the first PC. That is Steve Jobs talking to Wozniak, and at that stage there wasn't a PC. It didn't exist. So it's a highly creative stage of product development. Then also what happens next in the film, there were also later on, this was actually a flashback or flash forward, as I say in film studies, where the iPod was launched by Steve Jobs, and this actually created new markets. The iPod did not exist back in the day, and because of the success of the iPod, later on the iPhone was launched, and then the subsequent success of the Mac and all the iPhones after that started with this stage of opening new markets. What happened here in the film, this gentleman in this flashy car arrived there, and he was an investor that wanted to invest in this small little startup, and as you can see, they still operated out of Steve Jobs' parents' garage. So capitalists invested in this stage. You will also then run out of skills. You need professional skills, and this gentleman was brought in as a marketing guru because he worked at PepsiCo and he was highly successful working for Pepsi in America. So professional skills are needed. Phase 2. Now there's direction taking place. We need clear direction. So there's also, in the end of this phase, there's a leadership crisis. As you can see in the film, this gentleman becomes one of the division managers, and Steve Jobs actually at some stage left the company, came back in, and this chap, he actually confronted him and challenged him on his leadership. And there's more formal communication, and followed by the leadership crisis. Then we go through phase 3, which is delegation. This is the stage or the crisis of autonomy, where you want to work by yourself. Steve Jobs, highly creative, innovative individual. Later on, in the beginning, it was all team effort, and he had fun, and he had his friends around him, and they created new cool products, as they say in the film. But later on, he isolated himself, and he wanted to invest all his time to come up with a new product, which wasn't good for the company or for his colleagues. They struggled to delegate. As you can see here, this was actually one of the crucial points in the film where Steve Jobs realized he's losing his best friends. This was Wozniak standing on the left. So control crisis sets in. Then we go on to phase 4. This is the phase of coordination. As the company grows bigger, you need to get the right people in the right places, and they need to coordinate all the functional areas of the business. A control crisis starts again. This is the board of directors. At this stage, we're really unhappy about all the time that Jobs spent on building a Mac that he couldn't launch because he needed time to perfect his product. And a very uncomfortable phase in any company. There's bureaucracy sets in, growth is stifled, as was done here by the board of directors. This gentleman started off as marketing director, later on became the CEO. And very ironic, Steve Jobs, that founded this company, was actually fired from the company, and this chap became his boss. controls crisis sets in again. Then we go on to phase 5. This is where more collaboration starts, and you're working with professional companies, other partners, and by the end of the stage, there's a crisis where red tape sets in. As you can see here, Steve Jobs came in to the design department, and he wanted to know what the design department was working on, but they are professionals, good at their jobs, but at that stage, they just lacked creativity. So professional staff was employed, and it follows the matrix structure. In this scene, you actually see Steve Jobs suggesting, as interim CEO, that they go back to the initial company, and on the wall you can see that one poster is the marketing company they used to use where they're still smaller. So he actually did long for the old days where it was more fun working in a smaller company. Partnerships are developed, and then the last stage which they added, which I initially suggested or referred to, was now alliances start, and there can also be there was actually a growth crisis. At some stage they had to bring Jobs back, and as you can see on this scene, he started a company called Next, and they had to beg Steve Jobs to come back into the company to fix the company, to get it back to growth stage, and they had to buy his new company which he launched outside of Apple called Next. Then we follow on to the external growth stage, finding new solutions and involving more other companies, as was the case here with Next. So what's my handy hint for today? If you have any tests or exams on this topic, try and come up with abbreviations for the stages. What I've done here is CDD-CCA. It's creativity, direction, delegation, control crisis, collaboration, and then the last one, forming alliances. Or you can try, let's get to the next one, or you can try a longer one. This is actually the crises. There's a leadership crisis in the beginning, then it goes on to the autonomy crisis, and then followed by the control crisis, the red tape crisis, and lastly the growth crisis. Okay, now that is the 6 phases, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and try now to stop this video and write down the 6 phases in this correct order, followed by the 5 specific crises. Thank you.
If you found this Cyber Teachers video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll keep the content coming.